Well, folks, I want to thank you for being with us on this second edition of Becker'S Buds, the Conscientious Objectors to Drug War program. We try to bring you the unvarnished truth, the reality, the fact that this drug war is an abomination, has no reason to exist. And we try to bring you the people who have been at this for decades, people who have invested their time and their commitment to exposing this fraud and this misdirection. One such person is joining us now, Mr. Chris Conrad. He and his wife, Mickey Norris, wrote a great book, Shattered Lives, which helped to expose that fraud, that misdirection, the terrible consequences of believing in this drug war. And I want to welcome him to the show. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Great to be here, Dean, and thanks for having me back on. I've been on your Drug Truth a number of times, but this is my first time as a Zoom. We've always just done it with a microphone before, so congratulations on the video upgrade.
Well, we just started July 4th, but not too long ago, there was a gentleman who also committed his life, his writings, his self to exposing the need to change our nation's drug laws, especially our marijuana laws, because of his personal experience and so forth. And it was with the passing of Dr. Lester Grinspoon that we all lost a mentor, did we not?
Absolutely. His book, Marijuana Reconsidered, was one of my first exposures, actually, to the medical marijuana side of the issue, frankly. You know, I mean, I was aware of it, that people used marijuana in cancer wards in the 70s and 80s and so forth, and that AIDS patients were using it. But when I got involved with the legalization movement in the late 80s, that was one of the books I made sure that I read. And also Grinspoon is also at so many events, as you know, that he was a very gracious person, very welcoming, friendly. He also was one of the early people to understand the importance of hemp, you know, and I think it kind of had to do with his medical background, because a lot of people in NORML and so forth, other marijuana legalization groups, they say, well, hemp isn't marijuana, and you know, so they kind of like said that was a different issue. We treated it like one. As you know, I formed the Business Alliance for Commerce and Hemp in '88 to do medical marijuana, adult use and sales, and industrial hemp, not in that order. But in any case, so when we were first out there, because we were working 3 different campaigns simultaneously, people looked at us as we had to pick one, and we didn't. And Grinspoon, he saw the overlap that if you use hemp to clean the environment, it's going to improve the health of people, and then they won't need so much medical marijuana, you know. But I think the other thing I would have to mention about him is the fact that he took the tragedy of his son's cancer and his experience with that, and I don't know, you may want to recount the story or have me, but in any case, that to use that pain as an impetus for social change, I think is very heroic. Some people say, you know, when you talked about it, he said he really didn't have any choice. His son had cancer and it later passed away. But, you know, still, he did have a choice, and he chose correctly.
Well, and I like to think of Dr. Grinspoon as one of those whose stature, whose credentials, whose experience, if you will, help to validate or underscore what you and I had been putting forward, that his expertise, if you will, helped to move things forward, right?
Exactly. And, you know, not just the cannabis movement or the drug reform movement, but a lot of society has what we used to call alphabet soup, you know, conditioning, meaning that the more letters you have strung out after your name, the more people believe what you have to say, and legitimately, because obviously that means a certain amount of education. But for those of us who combine academic education with street learning, it kind of ends up in a situation where we may know a lot experientially about working on the issue, but nonetheless, we don't have the degrees to get acceptance at a broader level. Whereas Grinspoon, he was able to transcend that. He worked as an activist, but he also had the alphabet soup at the end of his name, MD and PhD, to where he was able to speak to groups that a lot of us were not able to get into. And, you know, when we talk about Lester, as I say, it always reminds me about some other medical marijuana doctors that we've lost. And the next 3 that I'm going to mention are from California, but that's Dr. Todd McCurry. His book, Marijuana Medical Papers, likewise with Grinspoon, was written in the 70s. Grinspoon wrote Marijuana Reconsidered. But both of their books were extremely important to me. And one of the things with McCurry that I found fascinating was not only his own personal experience with it. With Dr. Grinspoon, he tried to not use cannabis because he felt it would make it him appear biased. With Dr. Becker'S, he started off by trying marijuana and then exploring scientifically, looking at it from there. And his book, Marijuana Medical Papers, was the first one that I saw that talked about using marijuana as a substitute for alcohol. And, my dad was an alcoholic. And I really wish that we could have done that to him, because he ended up kind of dissipating his life in his later years on alcohol. And it was funny because he said, well, marijuana alters your consciousness. And when we would argue that, I'm sure almost everybody here has had that.
Yeah.
When we were young, you had that discussion with our parents. The other guy, Dr. Alcalay, Michael Alcalay, he was the doctor who basically was behind the Cannabis Buyers Club in San Francisco, Dennis Peron's Buyers Club. He was the main doctor who is in there working with these patients, making sure that they understood marijuana. And then later on, once we passed Prop 215, giving them their recommendations. And Dr. Becker'S and Dr. Alcalay were, I think, the two biggest prescription writers, medical marijuana recommendation writers in the state for quite a long time. And then there's Dr. Tom O'Connell. He was one of the people who really, he worked with us both there with Arrow for a long time, as you remember. And he understood the importance of it in PTSD. He worked with a lot of veterans. And so he was the first person that I saw come up with it, not only with alcohol, but other drug addictions, and tying it to the whole trauma of life. He was of the opinion that we've all had bad experiences with our fathers that traumatize us. I guess I don't feel traumatized, but I have everybody has bad experiences with their parents. So I do understand that. But fortunately for us, so we do still have some doctors who are out here alive. Dr. Frank Lucido probably worked on more patient cases than any other doctor that I know. Dr. Behrman, who worked on he's been with this cause for quite a long time. He wrote a very thick double book that a lot of doctors rely upon to learn about medical marijuana. People need to get woke and stay woke about this particular issue as well, and understand that these are both sides of the same ugly culture war against us. I think culture war is one of your cultural baggage. There we go. I see behind you that people need to deal with that. Also, would I say that trying to legalizing marijuana is extremely important, because it is the gateway to law enforcement ruining people's lives. And so once we get that solved, it's going to help a lot of people along the way. And I encourage everyone who can to get involved in this movement, to work with Normal and MPP, to do things independently, to support groups like Becker'S Buds here, because the news media is much more understanding now, and it's the direct result of people like you, Dean, who've been out there spreading the truth about the drug war when the news media was not being fair on it. And I think they've improved significantly as a result of the pressure that we put on them. And the laws have not changed because the politicians woke up. They changed because we did the political work around it, and we told those stories. And so I'm urging everybody out there to take this opportunity to become active. To find more about what I do, go to chrisconrad.com. We have a news website, theleafonline.com. And something we haven't talked about today is that with legalization comes commercialization, and with commercialization, there comes a callousness to not only the stories of all the people who've gone before and suffered, but also to the spiritual and social values of cannabis. It's not just a commodity to buy and sell. We use this to connect with one another, to connect with the planet, and to have many people have profound spiritual experiences. And so I encourage people to go to cantheism.org, cantheism.org, to learn a little bit about that. If you're interested in pursuing cannabis beyond the commercial, medical, and social use levels, and find out how you can use it for your own spiritual improvement.
Well, once again, I've been speaking with Mr. Chris Conrad. Now, Chris, be sure and tell your wife, Mickey, that later this month, I want her to be another of my Becker'S Buds. All right?
I sure will, Dean. And thank you so much for this opportunity. It's great to be on your program. We'll have to do it again sometime.
You bet.